I recently put out my annual birthday art supply haul video, and there were a couple things that you all wanted to see really soon. And this is one of those things. This is the Graphite line by Caran. It's a multi-techniques water-soluble set. It's got 13 artistic tools in a metal box. So basically it has some of their graphic cube, their RGB, which is red, green, blue, some of their Technalo RGB pencils, and their regular Technalo, which is water-soluble graphite, and then a couple of their Museum Aquarelle and a water brush and all kinds of other fun stuff. So you all want to see what I could do with this kit? We're going to find out together, because I have no idea what I'm going to do. So let's just get to it. My husband bought me this set for my birthday. This is the Multi-Techniques Water-Soluble set by Caran. It's their graphite line. You can see here it has a variety of materials. There are 13 supplies included in this, as well as a metal tin. And it has the typical Caran branding. So let's open it up and see what's inside. Again, there's the Caran branding on this pretty compact tin. We have here a little pamphlet that tells us what is inside the box. You can see there is some of their Technalo RGB, which is their red, green, blue. It's their tinted graphite line. So here we have their Graph Cubes RGB. So these are basically big water-soluble graphite blocks with just a tint of color in them. And then we can see here there's a red, a green, and a blue for those. I don't know if they make any other colors as part of their Technalo, to tell you the truth. And then their typical water brush, their Technique eraser, looks like a pretty sturdy eraser, and just a typical metal sharpener. So basically anything you need for on the go. Then underneath the padding, you have the pencils, and there are a variety of pencils here. We have 2 of their regular Technalo water-soluble graphite pencils in a 3B and a 6B. Nice matte black branding with the water brush on the side to show that they're water-soluble. And then we have their RGB pencils, which is their tinted graphite, just like the blocks I showed you. We have a red and a green and a blue, and the sides are colored to show and differentiate them from their regular graphite, again with that paintbrush to show they're water soluble. And these don't actually have any light fast ratings. So we have a Prussian blue, a dark phthalocyanin green, and a Carmine Lake, and then those match the blocks. And then we have here 2 of their Museum Aquarelle watercolor pencils. I love these pencils. And they come in 2 colors, the yellow ochre and the russet, and they have light fast ratings right on the side of them, and they're really good light fastness. So this is kind of a unique set with a unique range of colors. It's going to be really interesting. I'm going to start off by swatching. I do have here the Palette Aquarelle by Caran. This has a rough side on one side and a smooth side on the other. The rough side is used for coloring water-soluble media on there and then using it like watercolor. It's really messy because I use this palette all the time. And I just have some hot press watercolor paper here. I think this might be the Stonehenge Aqua. It was a scrap piece of paper, so I'm honestly not sure which brand this paper is. But I just wanted to do some quick swatches. So I've got the pencils swatched out there. And then I have the cubes swatched out here. And I wanted to show them both wet and dry. So the Technalo, the first 2 are the regular graphite. You can see they're just a regular, typical dark graphite. And then I have the RGB below, and you can see that little hint of color when you add the water. And then I'm using the palette method where I scrape the pencils on the palette and then I lift with my water brush and bring it over to the paper like a watercolor. So I'm doing that for each of my pencils. Then I've come through, I'm wetting down my swatches for my cubes, and then I'm going to use the palette method for those as well, so that's what I'm doing right now. And then I'm going to come through with my brush and go directly on the block and lift pigment right straight from the block, and you can see that gives a lot of dark graphite with just a hint of color. And now to swatch my Museum Aquarelle. I have done a video on some of these already. I hadn't used the blocks yet, But I do have a video about the RGB pencils, and I have a video about the Museum Aquarelles, but I have never used these supplies all together. So I'm also mixing some of my watercolor pencils with my RGB graphite pencils to see if I can add a little bit more color if I need to, or if I can use my graphite to dull down the watercolor pencils, and both work just fine. So now you can see my little swatches here, that nice little hint of color. I don't think that these are as pigmented color-wise as the Derwent Graphitin. You've seen me use the Derwent Graphitin on the channel quite often. These do tend to be a little bit more dull than those. I'm going to be using the Fluid 100 watercolor paper mainly because I want to use it in this size and it's on a block. I've had issues with this paper in the past with regular watercolor pencils and watercolors, but I never have issues with it with graphite. So we're going to just see how this plays out. And you know me, I am a landscape girl, and so I wanted to try these out with a landscape. I love doing moody landscapes, and I think tinted graphite is perfect for that. So I just sketched out this imaginary landscape that I had in my mind. It's not perfect. All right, I have no references here. I'm going from imagination. But I did think of this in my mind before I came to it because I was trying to think about all the ways that I could use these colors. Right now, I'm right full of fall fever. So I knew I wanted to have a fall landscape so I could emphasize those two watercolor pencils. And you'll see how I do that in the future. But basically, I used my blue tinted graphite for the sky. And then I'm coming in on the mountains and I'm using some of that blue again, and I'm adding just a little bit of the red graphite because I kind of wanted it to be a little bit purpley. It didn't really turn out purpley, but I wanted it to be, the mountains to be pretty cool, but I didn't want them to be as cool as the sky. Cool colors recede and warm colors come forward, and so I'm keeping that in mind to create distance in this landscape. So I wanted the sky to be the coolest part, and then the mountains, and then it's going to get warmer as things come forward. And of course, I am using the green for the grass. I thought about putting a little fence in there, but then I decided against it because I just got in the flow of things and was having too much fun with the grass later on. Now, I am bringing some reds in those distant trees because this is a fall landscape, and so I wanted some warmth in the distant trees, but I'm keeping it fairly dark to try and keep it so that it doesn't really draw too much attention away from the focal points, which are going to be obviously in front of that. That's going to be the buildings and the bigger trees. I had a lot of fun with this water brush. It did everything that I needed it to do. And for this road, I'm coming in with my red tinted graphite pencil. And I'm keeping it light at the top of the road and darkening as I go down to create this gradient. This will also help create a sense of distance. Usually, as things get further away in a landscape, they get a little bit lighter and hazier. And as things are closer to the viewer, they get a little bit darker and have more contrast. And that helps create some atmospheric perspective. So I definitely worked on that on the road. I was not worried about being too smooth about it because it's a dirt road. And I think that red worked great. Now for this little barn, I'm actually mixing some of my red watercolor pencil with my red graphite pencil because I didn't want this barn to pop too crazy. I wanted it to look old and a little bit rickety. And so I wanted a little bit of that graphite in there as well. And then I'm using the palette method with my yellow ochre to create the color on the little farmhouse. I'm adding in some shrubbery just to create a little bit more distance and focus. Now I'm going to be working on these fall trees, and these are the ones that are going to really pop. I'm using more of my watercolor pencils than I am the graphite pencils, and I'm using a little bit of the graphite pencils to darken the areas. I'm using some of the green graphite in the yellow trees, and then obviously some of the red graphite in the red trees. And as far as that barn goes, I do come in and fix it. I didn't create the pitch of the roof the way I planned. I had plans to do the pitch of the roof, and I stopped short. And then I ended up with a flat roof. And I'm like, if it snows here, that's not going to work. So I do end up fixing that later. You'll see it in the final piece. Now for this part, after all my graphite has dried, water-soluble graphite tends to stay put once it's dry. So it's really easy to glaze over it. So I'm actually bringing in some of my yellow ochre watercolor pencil mixing it with a little bit of my green and glazing it over that grass to bring in some more green. Then I'm doing something similar with the mountains, and I also do something similar with the crops in the background. And I also will end up straightening out those mountains as well. You'll see that in the final piece coming up. But yeah, I had a great time with this piece, and I think that I really mapped out the colors the way I really wanted. Here is the scan of the final piece. Let me know what you think. I had a great time with this. It was a lot of fun using the watercolor pencils to create emphasis in this sort of Technicolor looking landscape. I think these were great for creating a moody landscape and moody scenes in general. And I think they'd be fun for plein air painting as well. I can't wait to use them more in the future. I will link the other videos that I have done on the Museum Aquarelle and the Technalo RGB in the description below so that you can learn more about each of these supplies. All right, folks, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this set and if it's something that you would want to try, or if you've tried this set before, or any of the supplies that are in the set. Because there's quite the variety. Just let me know what you think of the supplies. All right, I'll see you next time. You have a fantastic day. Bye.